Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. Today is the 9th day of April in the year of our Lord 2021. Today I will be talking about the shocking levels of lies upon which almost everything presently seems to be based. Previously, only the government was the brunt of jokes about liars, such as the old joke, how do you know they're lying? Yes, that's right, their lips are moving. Now the government seems to be using private companies to outsource its lies so that it is hard to tell the difference anymore. The Castle family is doing just fine right now, enjoying this beautiful spring weather with its flowers, everything turning green. No virus in this family, at least not that we know of. For that, we're very grateful, I suppose. It's also spring in Los Angeles, California, so the family daughter tells us. In my opening paragraph, I mentioned that the government seems to be outsourcing its lies to private liars. But that doesn't tell the whole story. My theory is that this government, in conjunction with big tech and big media, wants to take action against the American people that are so egregious, so unconstitutional that even Americans might wake up and object. To avoid such objection and to hide behind a corporate veil, government gets through persuasion or profit corporations to do its dirty work. They always cite their experts as reasons why us peons are supposed to just shut up and listen to the science. For example, earlier this week, Dr. Tony Fauci, announced that the federal government would not require or mandate vaccine passports. That statement is disingenuous, in fact, a lie, and a good example of outsourcing, because we know that President Biden is working privately with tech companies to develop a vaccine passport via a cell phone app. The government would not have to unconstitutionally order it because private business will do it for them. You want to get out on this airplane? Where's your app? You want to shop here, rent a car here, get medical treatment here? Where's your app? But it's private business, not the government. Sometimes the federal government even uses private business to attack state laws it considers unacceptable. Georgia, for example. It seems that down in Georgia, the legislature looked at their election laws, the problems in the most recent election. They decided they could do better. The new law requires voter identification, which seems like a very good idea to me. We need an ID for almost everything these days to prove that we are who we say we are, and we haven't stolen someone else's identity. The new Georgia law is far less restricted from the election laws in both New York and Delaware, which is President Biden's home state. That would embarrass most people, but not this president, folks. Georgia has longer absentee voting without requiring an excuse, longer early voting, but the other states do not have such liberal provisions. Nevertheless, the president and many others chose to use the occasion to make partisan political points. To put it bluntly, they lied through their teeth to advance their own political ideology, unfazed by the damage their lies caused. The president can't be given a pass on this because of his dementia, since his lying about Georgia continues unabated even in his lucid moments. He recommended that Major League Baseball move its All-Star game out of Atlanta, which, of course, Major League Baseball did. Moving it to Denver, that move cost the state of Georgia an estimated $100 million. Given that Atlanta is more than 50% black, Denver only 9.5% black, that move had a disproportionate impact on black people. He also at least implied that the Masters golf tournament should be moved out of Augusta, where it has been played continuously, consecutively for 87 years, but the tournament said no thanks. Apparently, to President Biden requiring people to submit some form of ID to get an absentee ballot instead of just a signature is so evil it's worse than the Jim Crow laws. He compared it to apartheid, which I suppose reflects the Democrat view that black people are somehow incapable of obtaining an ID. They are incapable of showing an ID to get an absentee ballot. just as they would have to do when they voted in person. Florida Senator Marco Rubio wrote a letter to the Commissioner of Baseball, Rob Manfred, concerning his decision to move the game. I share Senator Rubio's letter with you in its entirety. Quote, I write to ask you whether you intend to maintain your membership at Augusta National Golf Club. As you are well aware, the exclusive members-only club is located in the state of Georgia. Last week, you decided that the best way to demonstrate our values as a sport is by relocating this year's All-Star Game from Atlanta because of Georgia's revised election law. It is a decision that will have a bigger impact on countless small and minority-owned businesses in and around Atlanta than the new election law ever will. One that reeks of hypocrisy. Will Major League Baseball now end its engagement with nations that do not hold elections at all, like China and Cuba? Will you end your lucrative financial relationship with Tencent, a company with deep ties to the Communist Party, actively helps the Chinese government hunt down and silence political dissidents? Since Major League Baseball now appears eager to use its platform to demonstrate unwavering support for fundamental human rights, will you cease your relationship with the Chinese government, which at this very moment is committing genocide against the Uyghurs Muslims in the Xinjiang autonomous region of China? I am, of course, under no expectation any of this will happen. Taking the All-Star Game out of Georgia is an easy way to signal virtues without significant financial fallout, but speaking out against the Chinese Communist Party would involve a significant loss of revenue and being closed out of a lucrative market. In the end, as a citizen of a free nation, you and Major League Baseball have the right to speak out against laws in the U.S. you disagree with, even if it is on the basis of false information. What would be truly bold, however, is if you would speak out on behalf of the voiceless who face arbitrary imprisonment, forced sterilization, coerced abortions, rape, other horrific acts at the hands of one of your business partners. I'm under no illusion that Major League Baseball will sacrifice business revenue on behalf of its alleged corporate values. Similarly, I am under no illusion you intend to resign as a member from the Augusta National Golf Club. To do so would require a personal sacrifice, as opposed to the woke corporate virtue signaling of moving the All-Star Game from Atlanta, end quote. Well, thank you, Senator Rubio, for that eloquent put down of this lying corporate shill. It is indeed uplifting to see someone in a position of leadership who has the courage to point out the obvious to those too blind to see. You may say, who cares what Major League Baseball does? But this game and the lying propaganda surrounding it are symbols of one of the primary wrongs in modern society. The wrong that must be corrected is not who gets the All-Star Game, but whether truth still has any meaning. I continue to hear many sports announcers following the lying script for their listeners as if the story were actually true. The truth seems to be, however, that they don't care if the story is true or not, as long as it advances the political agenda they favor by just one more notch. When I mentioned earlier that the federal government is outsourcing its lies to private industry, that is especially true for today's corporate media. The refusal to cover the story of Hunter Biden's laptop, which contains emails revealing the cozy and very lucrative relationship between the Chinese communists and the Biden family, is but one example of this. The media is very selective in which stories it chooses to cover, but if one can't be found to support the preferred narrative, that particular network, publication, etc., will just create one that fits. The best example of this is the interview of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by 60 Minutes on CBS News. It seems that 60 Minutes was so anxious to present a scenario in which the Florida no lockdown, no mask requirement was dangerous. Since the governor did not give that any credence, they simply edited his words to make him say only what they preferred that he say. He was not amused by this, and he held a press conference to explain what happened. So I quote from him, quote, they cut out everything that showed that their narrative was a piece of horse manure And it shows you how dishonest these are. Smear merchants. That's why no one trusts corporate media. They are a disaster in what they're doing. They knew what they were doing was a lie. They know that we know they're lying. Yet they continued to lie. They lied and they lied and they lied. We offered them the information and they declined to interview key people. They didn't want to let go of the narrative. Well, guess what? There's going to be consequences for that. I know corporate media thinks they can just run over people, but they ain't running over this governor. I'm punching back. Well, thank you, Governor. Well said. Thank you for having the guts and the determination to stand for the truth. Why don't we look at New York City? By comparison to anywhere in the state of Florida, the headline of the New York Post, April 7th, 2021, just 2 days ago, reads, "Bell tolls for New York City." The article points out that this time it's different for New York and that the decline might be permanent because of many factors, not the least of which of those factors is the abominable leadership of Governor Cuomo and Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York. The budget for this year is $212 billion, including $4 billion in new taxes, while businesses and residents are fleeing the state in droves. By contrast, Florida has 2 million more people than New York, but will get by on only $97 billion this year. Due to excessive taxation, lockdowns, generally treating any business or resident as a farmer would treat his milk cattle, many in Florida are in favor of awarding Cuomo and de Blasio dual Employees of the Month for the state of Florida. People in New York are afraid, folks. They're afraid. This article points out, the New York Post that is, points out that murder is up 45% as of last year and 13.5% over that so far this year. The Post asked the question, what business would want to come here? Why would existing businesses want to stay here? Why would they want to pay this horrendous new tax? The answer is no, 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 and hell no. We have given up on New York. Albany's answer to the crime wave: put more handcuffs on cops, turn just about every criminal suspect loose, empty the prisons, raise taxes. Oh, and by the way, let's give $2.1 billion to illegal immigrants. That information was from an article in last Wednesday's New York Post, which, unlike the Times, is still willing to occasionally print the truth and doesn't seem interested in serving as an outsource for federal lies and unconstitutional actions. The Post article went on to say that the quality of life in New York is plummeting, while taxes are skyrocketing upward. The city faces a devastating future, the article says. Well, not so much in Florida. That state's doing just fine, coming back from the virus, resisting attempts to turn it into New York City despite the lies of CBS News. New York is a sad story, though, because it was once the greatest city in the world just a couple of years ago. Finally, folks, Major League Baseball, a once great American institution and tradition, and New York City, a once great American city, have now fallen victim to cowardly corporate media government wokeness. What's the difference between the three? The business, the media, the government, that is. One of them has people with guns who can lock you away in a hole for a long time, and of course, they have their experts to explain it all. At least that's the way I see it. Until next time, folks, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.